Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. In this programme tonight we shall be discussing how Israel has given a warning to Britain that Britain is in range of Iran's continental ballistic missiles after the regime fired 2 missiles at the British base in Diego Garcia. The British military base of Diego Garcia is located approximately 2,500 miles away from Iran, marking the furthest distance from which Iran has launched missiles in the current conflict. This action demonstrates that the Iranian regime possesses an imminent threat to British national security, despite denials from our Prime Minister Starmer and his Attorney General that the US-Israel war against the Iranian regime is in violation of international law. We shall also be discussing the increasing threat posed to the British Jewish community and the Israeli embassy in the UK from various Iranian terrorist agents in the UK. And when will our weak and indecisive Prime Minister come to the realisation that the Iranian regime is at war with Britain? And in this programme today, I'm joined by my good friends and fellow co-hosts. They are Pastor Tim Gutman together with Pastor Reagan King. So guys, warm welcome to Behind the Headlines.
Well, it's good to be here, and it's such an important topic as we see the situation in the Middle East escalate. I think it's fair to say to some degree, although whether or not Britain will actually respond to this act of aggression on this very important military base of ours, I actually doubt.
Yeah, I think you're right there. These are the days we're living in as we get closer to the return of Jesus. There's so much going on, and actually there is a really apt Bible verse in Luke chapter 21. It's verses 25 to 26, and actually a lot of you guys will be feeling this when we're not so close to Jesus. Hear these words: "And there will be signs in the sun, the moon and the stars, and on the earth, distress of nations, perplexity, and the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken." I think so apt for these days, Reagan.
Yeah, very, very much. And I think it's critical that we recognize the call of Jesus in this passage in Luke. You can see it's a coordinating passage there in Matthew 24 as well, is to trust, not terror, trust. Frightening times, absolutely, undeniably frightening times, but our responsibility as followers of Jesus Christ is not to give in to the fear of frightening times, not to give in to what Satan wants in relation to the terror and what is inarguably terrifying, but to trust Him with everything that we have and to know that He is working it all out to His perfect plan and purpose. That's why I can look at this situation and look. These are exciting days in which we are living.
That's right.
Yes, frightening, but I'm excited to see how God is going to break through with His light through it all. I'm excited at the prospects and the significance and the implications of all of this that's going on as we see our political rulers essentially playing 4D chess here. I know that we're underneath the King of all of the earth,
That's
and
right.
He is accomplishing it all to fulfill His perfect plan and purpose.
No, absolutely, and I think what this scripture, it really does signifies the times in which we're living in.
Yeah.
The men's hearts will fear from the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. And I don't ever remember such a turbulent decade as we are in now, the 2020s. COVID-19, October the 7th, the war against the Russian invasion of the Ukraine.
Relentless.
And it's been, and then of course Israel's military strikes against the Iranian regime last year. What we're effectively seeing is events take place within months that usually happen within decades.
Right.
And of course, one of the characteristics is fear. And of course, Jesus says that love casts out perfect fear. So we don't have to be fearful in these times. But as you said, we should be expectant because the Lord is doing something incredible. But we also remember that the Iranians, if they did launch a ballistic missile at the UK, we would only have a 20-minute warning before. Our nation is not prepared for that. and our government is not prepared for that. And this is going to be the new form of warfare that we face. Right. And yet our government is very, very slow to catch up with that. But again, what do we put our trust in? Do we put our trust in governments? Do we put our trust in our military? Or do we put our trust in the Saviour, Yeshua HaMashiach?
HMS Dragon. Literally the one ship that's out there that no one actually knows where it is at this point in time.
It's probably in Portsmouth, still in the harbour.
And stuff don't tell anyone.
But the added aspect of this one is that we've done programs on this before, that the Chinese have developed supercontinental ballistic missiles or supersonic continental ballistic missiles that travel through space before they hit their target. So have the Russians. The Iranians are in the process of developing that. Maybe they have a few, but
they're tight with Russia
and North Korea. Which makes and poses the big question is that the Iranians last week fired their longest range ballistic missile at our base in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, which was intercepted by the Americans, thankfully, as we got 100 military personnel on those islands. And it asks the question is, why is the government not having the foresight to realise that the new threats facing our nation and Europe comes from ballistic missiles and supersonic missiles?
And it's not like we haven't had forewarning. I mean, we could see this coming. When Russia invaded Ukraine, it's that mindset change where it's like, hang on, this can happen in Europe, this can happen in the UK. And we've had time, and so many experts and politicians are saying we need to invest in defence now, we need to invest in defence now. As in the flesh, I'd be perplexed, and obviously we have a different level because, the Bible tells us whatever is good and pure and lovely, stay close to Jesus. He's the King of the nations. He's Adonai, he's sovereign, so we trust him. But I understand if you don't have a faith in Yeshua right now, I'd be very worried about our government because I think what we need right now is a wartime leader, and what we've got really is a lawyer, is a almost woke lawyer, and what we need is a strong wartime leader who's going to make the big decisions, because we're spending money on things we shouldn't be, and we need to divert that to defence in the flesh. That's how I'd be feeling if I was not a follower of Yeshua. I'd be very, very worried. But he's Adonai, right?
Absolutely.
We're looking at a situation that is on paper potentially catastrophic.
Exactly.
We have no defenses. This is being acknowledged. This isn't. We're not just having a commentary on something that's not been acknowledged here. This has been acknowledged by people of high rank in our military, or people who were previously of high rank in the military. We have individuals who have for years expressed concern over our defense capabilities and capacity. It's interesting that Keir Starmer is continuing to take shots at the U.S. and at Israel, and continuing to be and deal with this in a very limp-wristed way, while we have across. I was looking at the spread in the Daily Telegraph of how we would be able to defend against a potential ballistic missile. The only British operated entity is, of course, HMS Dragon.
Type 45.
Everything else is operated and is controlled by the US.
Yep.
Imagine alienating your greatest ally at a time when you have only one defense, and that a defense that no one actually has a clue what's going on.
No. And the other aspect to this one is that at the very start of this war, Operation Roaring Lion, or Operation Epic Fury, as the Americans like to call it, Starmer and his Attorney General came out and said this is against international law.
Yeah.
But we now see that the Iranian regime has targeted British bases, the RAF base in Cyprus. That's a declaration of war. Yes. Fired 2 ballistic intermediary missiles at our base in Diego Garcia. That is against international law. And now they have the missile capability, according to the Israelis, of targeting London. So how is that not posing an imminent existential threat to the UK, which therefore makes this war illegal? We're also seeing how the Iranian regime is going under surveillance and surveilling the Jewish community, looking for targets to attack the Jewish community. And of course, waking up this morning of this recording, knowing that they arsonists have attacked those ambulances in North London, Jewish ambulances, and set them alight.
Backed by Iran.
Backed by the Iranian regime, according to the Israeli embassy, and again wanting to instill fear in our Jewish community. So when will our Prime Minister wake up that we're actually at war with the Iranian regime because the Iranian regime is at war with us?
Absolutely. And there's been so much, wasn't there something like, we discussed this last time, over 20 attempts of terrorist attacks in the UK by Iran. We're at war, you know. This attack on our base, even the Cypriot president, he's like, what's the point in you guys having a base here if you're not going to defend it, first of all? You haven't got the capability to defend it. I mean, they attacked us. They attacked us.
Right.
The Lebanese president said it's the Iranians in Lebanon that are operating that drone that hit Cyprus or that hit the British base there. The attack on Diego Garcia. How much more does it take to realise we're at war with a regime that possibly has supersonic missiles that we can't defend against? What is it? 20 minutes. 20 minutes we give Londoners quickly get to the undergrounds or whatever. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. We're defenceless. We have a government that's so driven by this. It's this agenda that instead of investing in defence, instead of seeing a threat and hitting it head on, it's trying to appease everything. They've got so many other priorities, and right now the biggest priority is actually defending your people, your nation, with a threat that's been clearly seen for years. And again this morning, as you mentioned, at the time of recording, an attack on the Jewish community. Iranians arrested for trying to get into one of our nuclear bases. I mean, how much more until they realise we're at war?
Oh, absolutely. So the Sunday Times reported on Sunday, the 22nd of March, under the following front page headline: Iran has the firepower to hit London, according to Israel. The report stated that 2 ballistic missiles were fired at the British military base in Diego Garcia, located approximately 2,500 miles from Iran, marking the furthest distance from which Iran has launched missiles in this conflict. These missiles were a warning message to Europe, diplomatic and intelligence sources have told the Sunday Times. Sir Keir Starmer condemned Iran yesterday for lashing out after Tehran fired 2 intermediate range missiles towards Diego Garcia, the joint US-UK military base in the Indian Ocean, located roughly as far as London or Paris. They said that the IDF confirmed that this was the first time since the start of Operation Roaring Lion that Iran has fired a missile that could reach the distance of 2,500 miles. And they say, we've been saying it, the Iranian terrorist regime poses a global threat with missiles that can reach London, Paris or Berlin. They go on to say, it is not known for certain that Iran possesses a missile capable of reaching Diego Garcia. It's understood that the first missile was intercepted between Thursday night and Friday morning, before the UK expanded permission for its joint base in Diego Garcia and RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire to be under Pacific and limited defensive operations. So the big question is, how, if we're at war and the Iranian regime's at war with us, can the British government only carry out defensive measures? I don't understand this. If you're at war and the Islamic Republic of Iran is attacking British interests, British bases, and you're saying we're only going to deploy defensive measures, I mean, sorry, I'm perplexed, so perplexed to know the thinking of our defence minister, our Prime Minister, knowing that he'd sooner align himself with the Islamist regimes in the Middle East than defending British interests and British values.
And the enemy, this is an enemy that only responds to strength, and when he sees weakness, and what he's seen from Europe, from America's NATO allies, we've shamefully isolated America and Israel when we should have eradicated this threat, because you have the lack of foresight to understand that if we don't sort this out now, we'll be back again in a few years.
Yes.
Because Iran, the IRGC, this is an ideology, a philosophy, as we all know as believers. This is a demonic philosophy, ideology that wants to wipe out Israel, and then it will go for Rome, because that's what they always say in their speeches. Once we're done Jerusalem, we're going for the Christians. Is a lack of foresight. You cannot have diplomacy with such people, and to not understand that we're at war with this regime, and actually they've been at war with us for a number of years, with China and North Korea, with their bots and their bot farming and their
Fully it.
propaganda.
And Russia, this is what I'm incredibly frustrated by, because I'm hearing a lot of people who have no experience or understanding of any of this conflict in the Middle East at all, harping on about how this is illegal and how there's no, what did the regime do? Yes, okay, the regime is horrible, but what did they actually do to us? Do you want the list? Do you want the list? There's a full list, right? There's, you mentioned it just last year, 20 potentially lethal attacks sponsored by the Iranian regime on British soil that, thank God, were foiled.
And they did attempt to attack the Israeli embassy last April.
They did. That's one, and that was very evident. That was very publicized.
In an October the 7th style terrorist attack.
Yes.
And of course, they've taken the likes of Terry Waite prisoner and held him hostage. They've targeted our British troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and also that they have been the main driver in supporting Al Qaeda and aligning themselves with Al Qaeda in the 1990s.
They have a British couple who they have in prison, languishing in dire circumstances. This is akin to the hostage situation in Gaza. They've literally taken this couple illegally, ill-advisedly, traveling through thinking that, okay, Iran, it might not be as bad a situation or as dangerous as it's made out to be. They are in prison. They're languishing in dire circumstances and situation. Put the UK in a situation like Israel found itself on October the 7th, October the 8th. What would happen? We'll just leave the hostages. We'll just leave them. Just let them perish. Well, we'll have diplomacy, the hand-wringing routine, the nervousness, the anxiety, the jitters that Starmer is clearly having over sounding too strong and making any bold moves. The reality is this is an ongoing conflict. There's no question as to its legality. The instigation of routine crimes against not only Israel, not only against the US, and not only against the UK, but against humanity in general. The complicity in relation to the conflict in Ukraine. People, I'm seeing a lot of Anglican churches flying Ukrainian flags but condemning Israel.
That's right.
It's nonsense. You're flying the Ukraine flag. If you're in favor of Ukraine, then you will recognize, as Ukrainians recognize, as their president Zelensky is saying, that the Iranian regime and the Kremlin are brothers in hostility. They're brothers in evil.
And isn't that very telling? Ezekiel 38, Persia is good, Russia, who knows? But anyway, the Sunday Telegraph on the 22nd of March asked this question: could Iran really strike Britain? And so in this article it says, ministers discuss warnings that London is within reach of Tehran's missiles after an attempted attack on Diego Garcia. The missile central to claims that Iran can now strike London is longer than a double-decker bus and based on a design from North Korea. I'm going to try and say this, the Khorram Shah is around 43 feet long, can carry a payload of up to 4,000 pounds, which is about the weight of a large family car. Yet the crucial statistic is whether its range extends to the UK. That remains uncertain, according to missile experts. On Saturday, Israeli defense officials said Iran's attempted ballistic missile attack on the Diego Garcia military base in the Chagos Islands, 2,400 miles away in the Indian Ocean, means that continental Europe and possibly Britain were now in range. And that distance is similar from northwest Iran to London.
And it goes on to say here, and this is what the Israelis have said. So London, Paris and Berlin and every other European capital now lies within credible Iranian reach, said Brigadier General Ran Ko'ov, a former Royal United Services Institute research fellow, an ex-commander of the Israeli Air Force and Missile Force. And this is the response of the British government. However, the UK government immediately expressed scepticism. Asked about the Israeli comments, Steve Reed, the housing secretary, said there is no assessment to substantiate what is being said. I'm not aware of any assessment at all that they're even trying to target Europe, let alone if they could have tried. So again, what is a housing minister doing talking about the possibility of Iranian ballistic missile hitting the UK and being very skeptical of it. I mean, surely the reality is that this is a wake-up call. Whether he's saying this publicly but thinks something else different privately, I don't know. But surely you would have the UK Defence Minister coming out, fronting the media at the weekend to discuss this issue. And of course, Starmer kind of hid this for a number of days, that the Iranians targeted Diego Garcia. And it wasn't until the American press a couple of days later reported this did we actually then find out that this actually happened in the UK. So again, more and more cover-ups, lack of transparency on behalf of our weak, indecisive Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who looks politically like a lame duck right now, and has highlighted his complete inefficiency to deal with major international crisis and problems, because he's undermined NATO, he's undermined the US-American alliance, should be standing with Israel and US, but instead has deemed Israel his number one enemy.
It would be farcical if it wasn't so perplexing, as we've said. This is a housing minister. This is not just a cover-up, it's deception, isn't it? 36 hours, we find out from the American media. Our own Prime Minister doesn't even tell us that they targeted our base. And then a housing minister, you couldn't make it up.
I think this is becoming par for the course, though. And I understand on one level that our government doesn't want to incite mass panic or mass fear.
But it's also this obsession with legality and Lord Hermer's assessments.
It's just all of this equivocation going back. At the same time, there's so much wool being pulled over people's eyes, and that's leading to this problem. What they're I think in some cases trying to do is guard people from having a burst of patriotism that sees patriotism that sees random individuals assaulted in the street. What it's actually doing is it causing for people to have an anti-patriotism that's saying Jews assaulted in the street because bad Israel, attacking without any cause the poor Iranian regime and that poor old grandfather who they bombed on day one of this, the Ayatollah. What an incredible human being. You're hearing this sort of rhetoric. It's not even being sarcastic. I've literally seen people excuse this, demonic individual.
In our day and age in this country, we have protesters holding up posters of Khomeini. This guy who killed tens of thousands of his own people wants to do nothing but wipe out Israel.
Candlelit vigils.
Candlelit vigils that took our servicemen hostage. Do you remember them, the Navy, the Royal Navy? Do you remember him, the Iranian embassy siege soon after they hijacked that revolution?
2007, that was 2006 and 2007, I remember it well.
And there are people holding his poster on our streets. It's like they don't want us to ask the obvious questions. Hang on, why aren't we spending money on defence? Where are we spending money? Why have we got thousands of up to now illegal immigrants we're housing in our bases fighting age men? So actually those guys that would be violent on the street, those guys that tend to the far right, they're asking these questions anyway, and their silence and if they just came out and be straight, and you can stop a lot of conspiracy. Just be straight and say, guys, we're in this together, we're at war, and it's going to cost, we're going to need to sacrifice, pull our belts in, and we're going to need to spend on defence.
Distrust is present for a reason. There is distrust present because we have people in places of trust who are completely, inherently, inexplicably untrustworthy. They have done nothing to garner or earn the trust of the British people, much less the trust of allies around the world, to say the least, in relation to Israel. And the reality is people are beginning to see, because it's impossible to hide. Had the US not said anything, I don't think we would know at this moment. We'd be doing a different program.
I think we could well be, but I think we need to ascertain the fact of stuff as well, is that this government deliberately wants to spend money on illegal migrants. It wants to spend money on the kind of welfare budget. We also know, for example, that this government wants to cozy up to the Islamists because they see this as a very powerful voting bloc now as they're flexing their political muscles. They don't want to do anything that could remotely be seen as anti-Islamic, even though the Iranian regime has declared war against the UK and has been at war with the UK ever since the supreme leader Khomeini came to power in the Islamic Revolution of '79. So we've literally been at war against this regime for 46 plus years now. So it's a time to kind of wake up and realize that what America and what Israel are doing is actually defending the West. Now, can you imagine, and I think we have to imagine this now, particularly in the context of the program we're discussing the possibility that the Iranian regime has intercontinental ballistic missiles that can fly through space, that could hit London within 20 minutes. Now, just imagine if that had a nuclear warhead, and you can imagine that hitting central London. I mean, we're talking about an absolute massive catastrophe taking place, and yet the French, the British, the Canadian, the Australian governments would allow that to happen because they believe that you can negotiate, and the power of negotiate with the Iranian regime over their nuclear weapons program, and that we can convince the Iranians this is not in your interest, it's in your interest to give up your nuclear weapons, and there's no need for war, because they don't understand the reality of what evil is. There is no moral compass with them. There is no moral clarity.
That's right.
And the reality is that I think our defence officials must be tearing their hair out right now at this government, realising the seriousness of our nation, and the precarious situation we face is very similar to that of the 1930s with the build-up of Nazi Germany in Germany.
That's right. And we're at a time as well when we're hearing that Rachel Reeves is stopping even the money we have promised the MOD from getting there. There was arguments there with the MOD and with Rachel Reeves. I can't believe, what planet, okay, let me just address what you just said. What planet are these European, Canadian, Australian leaders on where you think you can have diplomacy? When this all kicked off, don't forget, because it was Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff said, these guys are playing a game. They're trying to buy time. They keep doing that. They go close to a deal, pull back, close to it, because what they want to buy time. Why? Because they want a nuclear bomb. They want a nuclear bomb. And look how they responded to this. It's like scorched earth with what they've got. They're firing missiles everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. This is a regime you cannot, and Israel knows this, you cannot negotiate with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with these people that are driven by a demonic ideology. I don't know what planet our leaders are on, but it's like a lack of foresight, a lack of understanding of the times. I love that scripture where it says Issachar had an understanding of the times. Zero understanding of the times and the threat we face.
And this is the problem that we have, where we are surrounded not only by leaders in places of government who don't understand the times and don't know what the nation should do, but we have people who can hold to account the leadership who similarly don't understand the times and don't understand what the nation should do. And that's spiritually as well, spiritual leaders, people who should be speaking truth into this. And that's why we have a culture that is pervaded by false narratives, that's accepting continually misinformation and that which is dishonest.
Absolutely, and also our media coverage of this war as well, effectively focusing on the huge price of oil that's gone up now over $100+ a barrel, which is affecting everyone at the pumps. That means the cost of living is going up. We're seeing, for example, social media influencers now flocking out of Dubai because of the missiles landing on the United Arab Emirates and creating a kind of sense that, no, this was a paradise, it's no longer a paradise. And yet our media don't realise and don't report the fact that the Iranian regime poses a direct threat to the national security of the entire Western world. And what's at defence is our Judeo-Christian heritage, and this is what they want to destroy. And also the fact that our civil servants in the Foreign Office decided to celebrate with the Iranian regime their 47th anniversary at the Iranian embassy in London.
Reprehensible.
And knowing that the regime has murdered anything between 30 and 100,000 of its own people, that should be enough reason to kick the Iranian ambassador and dispel all the diplomatic staff, including outlawing the IRGC, and we should pull our ambassador out of Tehran because we're at war. But also, it's also a question as well, which raises very, very serious questions about our national defence. So the Daily Telegraph reported on Sunday, the 22nd of March, under the following headline: Britain's defenceless against Iran's missiles. Senior defence source says the UK would struggle to fend off long-range bombardments by Tehran. Britain is defenceless against a potential Iranian missile attack, former army chiefs have said. They said what was first confirmed, use of a long-range ballistic missile by Iran. One defence source with knowledge of the UK's integrated air defence system warned that Britain would struggle to fend off such a long-range bombardment, and they told the Telegraph the following. It is woeful. Combating ballistic missiles are long-learnt skill set, and the UK set of those skills is sadly very, very low.
And it goes on to say, Sean Bell, who is a former Air Vice Marshal, said Britain had Bloodhound missiles to stop such attacks during the Cold War, but its defences have waned since then because of a lack of investment. The worry here is that if Iran was to launch a ballistic missile that was heading our way, unlike Israel, unlike America, unlike Diego Garcia, we have no defences in this country. He told the BBC on Saturday evening. Whilst we could track it, it would be able to strike us. Now, I think the chances of that happening are fairly slim, he says, but the UK has no ground-based air defence system capable of intercepting ballistic or hypersonic missiles. The Army's 7 batteries of Sky Sabre missile systems are built primarily to intercept fast jets, attack helicopters and laser-guided missiles. RAF Fillingdales, a radar station in North York Moors, provides early warning and tracking, and that does form a crucial part of the NATO's defensive shield. However, it cannot intercept the incoming threats. So ultimately, we would be relying on NATO and our allies in Europe. Very, very worrying.
Yeah, and Germany's prepared for this because they see the Russian threat and they've invested in the kind of Patriot missile defense system, right, but we haven't. And for many of you who may be not fully aware of the danger that the UK is posed by the Iranian regime and its ballistic missiles, let's take a look at one of those ballistic missiles that hit Israel's city of Arad, very close to Israel's nuclear sites in Israel over the weekend.
Here behind me we can see the point, the exact location where the missile hit in Arad. And here we can see the buildings that got the hit. Once again, the Iranian enemy aims its missiles into civilian population centers. We have many dozens of people that got injured severely here in the middle of the evening. This is the beginning of a new week in Israel. We just started it. We hope to have a good week, but we have one hit in Dimona, the second hit in Arad, many injured. And now we are in the middle of the search and rescue operation.
We've seen throughout this, yes, Israel has managed and has nobly defended itself with its capacities. We don't have such capacity, and that's what we've been saying. Because of the UK's limited capability, defence chiefs would have to make a tough decision on whether to protect key military bases or major cities, according to a military source. If you defend everything with insufficient resources, you defend nothing. And we go down that route in peril, they said. We need to decide what those difficult choices are. For example, you may have to say to yourself, we'll never be able to defend Birmingham. If we try and defend all centers of population and everything, and the threats are multitudinous, diverse, and difficult, you will end up with an almost impossible amount of things left to do.
And we also see that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has followed this by saying that on Sunday Iran had the capacity to reach deep into Europe, and he added that they already have fired on a European country, Cyprus. They are putting everyone within their sights. And we also see the response from a British cabinet minister who maintained that the UK could counter the threat by adding, "We are perfectly capable of protecting this country and keeping this country safe, whether it's here at home or whether it's our assets on our nationals region." He also said the fact that one of the missiles fired at Diego Garcia had been intercepted and the other one failed to show that our defence capabilities are correct. It's not our defence capabilities. This
right.
is the American capabilities.
Yeah.
So is he actually undermining what our defence chiefs are actually saying?
And by the way, it just highlights what Donald Trump, President Trump, and what Pete Hegseth, what they've been saying all along. Europe, we have been taking the mick out.
Yep.
Have been taking advantage of America because we're not spending on our defence. We've not updated our systems. We've seen the threat of hypersonic missiles. You've seen it in Ukraine. We knew these were coming, but we've just said to ourselves, no, we'll just spend our money on things we shouldn't be spending our money, and we'll let the Americans take care of the defence, and we'll just hide behind America. And President Trump was absolutely right. We've been doing that, clearly. I mean, he even takes credit. Our defences are working. This was the Americans that intercepted that missile. We've got, I think, our only capabilities to defend against such missiles, as you said, is the Type 45. And 5 of them, I think, are being welded on, which doesn't give you much hope, does it? But actually, there is one, and that's only the Eastern Mediterranean. So what have we got around our island? And we are clearly, I mean, if the Iranians develop a missile that can reach 4,000 miles, they can't reach America, 5,000 miles. Where are they going to hit first?
Yeah.
We should be, I mean, this should be a wake-up call for us all.
But it's not only the Iranian regime. We're talking North Korea.
Yeah.
We're talking China. We're talking Russia. And this is going to be the new warfare that we're heading into. And so therefore our nations need to prepare for that type of warfare, and to think that we need to reduce carbon zero net emissions.
That's exactly what I'm talking
If we then import our energy from Norway and gas and also wood chips from Canada, we need to be energy self-sufficient, which means we need to drill in the North Sea oil. We need to get our oil production back on track. We need to get our natural gas on track. And it's a luxury to think that we can pursue these ideological green environmental policies when the reality is that we probably only got enough electricity for a few days if we face a war. How many days of food do we have in terms of backed up in storage before we run out? And that we are very vulnerable as a nation because we're not self-sufficient. So this is the danger of globalism, and this whole globalist order that's been created over the last 3 or 4 decades is literally coming crashing down. What's also very interesting as well that we see that Jake Wallace-Simons, who's writing in the Daily Telegraph, announced how the Iranian regime has weaponized its space program. So he wrote an opinion piece in the Daily Telegraph under the following headline: "Is Iran now capable of launching missiles at London?" He says the attempted strike on Diego Garcia shows that Tehran may have weaponized its space program with truly frightening prospects for Britain. He says, has the Ayatollah gone interstellar? That is something nobody expected to be asking at the end of last year. Yet after his missile attack on Britain's airbase in Diego Garcia, which lies approximately 2,400 miles from Iran, that is exactly what experts are wondering. He says, in truth, the regime has been using space weapons for a while. That after is how its ballistics work. Each missile, which is the size of a London bus, is fired out of the atmosphere using a rocket engine and traces something called a particle path through space before re-entering at hypersonic speeds, descending to its target. This gives Tehran a range of up to 1,800 miles. Before the war, Iran had a stockpile of 1,000. This has been significantly reduced, but remains a menace. Again, this is a lack of trust, because we see that the Iranian regime was trying to, before a couple of years ago, using its space program in order to develop these intercontinental ballistic missiles to potentially put a nuclear warhead on them. So in the time that we woke up.
Well, he goes on saying, according to experts, it seems unlikely that Iran has managed to develop an entirely new class of missiles with such speed and secrecy. Instead, the regime may have ingeniously repurposed rockets from its space program. Before the war, Iran's civilian space agency and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had jointly developed a suite of homegrown rockets, including the Safir, Samorg, and Qased, which were paired with Russian launch services. Last year, Tehran successfully sent its heaviest ever payload, a telecommunications satellite and space tug weighing around 300 kilograms, into orbit using 2 Samorgs. On Monday, Israel announced that it had destroyed a military space facility in the Iranian capital used to develop capacities for attacking satellites, posing a threat to the State of Israel satellites and to space assets of other countries around the world. But with multiple space agency headquarters in and around Tehran and others in Shahrud and Qom, it's far from clear that the project has been put out of action. The Iranians often mount them on lorries. The space rockets, by contrast, normally use liquid fuel as part of the launch process, so it can take several hours to fill them with a mixture of fuel and oxidizer at a specialist complex before they're ready to be activated, making them harder to move about and easier to locate and destroy. It's good that their collection of these space rockets is much smaller than its arsenal of ballistic missiles, which was in the thousands, so they would be deployed sparingly. But the question is, could the attempted strike on Diego Garcia be a pilot operation for the strategic weaponization of space technology against the West, with the United States more than 7,000 miles away from Iranian soil? Could London be first in the firing line? And they certainly seem, according to Jake Wallace-Simons, reckless enough. They've targeted neighbors like Qatar and Turkey, who've previously fostered warm relations with the regime. And it's a reality that the harder Tehran is hit, the wilder it is lashing out.
Absolutely, and this is what one of Iran's generals has said. It says, from now on, based on information we have about you, even parks, recreational areas and tourist destinations anywhere in the world will no longer be safe for you. The danger could hardly be clearer. And of course, what the Iranians have done as well is they produced a video using Lego figures to show their kind of propaganda of how they plan to target the Gulf states, how they're targeting Israel and also Cyprus, but also with their intercontinental ballistic missiles could now pose a direct threat to the UK.
And we mentioned there that they don't have a lot, but listen to that general's response. Where your tourists are in your parks, look at what they've done. Surely we, when I say we, as the Judeo-Christian West, or those leaders who have that shared post-World War II alliance of togetherness to protect the world, surely we should be saying, we don't want these guys to even have one of these missiles. And this is why it's a time to stand with America and Israel and not a time to leave them isolated, a key time. The Iranian officials told The Telegraph that the failed attack had been a warning shot to the UK, specifically mentioning the UK there. Despite the significance of the attempted Diego Garcia strike, the British public was not immediately informed with news of the foiled attack, thought to have happened at some point in the past few days, only emerging, as we mentioned, following the reports in American media. The government is yet to confirm exactly when it took place. It said only that it happened before it gave permission for the US to launch defensive strikes against Iran from Diego Garcia and RAF Fairfield on Friday. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, accused the Prime Minister of trying to cover up the truth, while Reform's Nigel Farage said he had no doubt that if this story had not come out in the media, the government would not have told the public. Sir Keir Starmer pledged $1 billion towards improving Britain's integrated air defences as part of his strategic defence review last year. However, a funding row between the MOD and the Treasury has delayed release of the Defence Investment Plan, which will spell out how Britain will equip its military over the next decade. This is worrying times if you're British and if you haven't got faith in Jesus. But here we see the government dithering what they've promised. Those funds are not being released. They're covering up. This is a time when we need strength in the government. We've got quite the opposite.
No, and it's really tragic that we have this government at such a time. But again, God is sovereign and he will use this government. He's the one that raises up governments. He's the one that raises up empires. He raises them up and he brings them down again. So we can be pleased that there is a purpose in all of this. There is a purpose why God is allowing this Labour government to be in office right now, this very, very dangerous time, but it's to call the church to pray and intercede more. And it's time that we saw a restoration of holiness in our churches. Time we saw the Bible, the entire Bible being preached, not trying to prick people's ears, but also the churches to wake up. I mean, I know you two are both pastors, And I know that you both have your fingerprints on the ball when it comes to preaching in the pulpit, but surely it's time to speak up on what's happening domestically and internationally, what's happening to Israel, which is a God's covenant nation, which is coming under the forefront of these Iranian missile attacks and drones, and also Israel defending the world. And it's like this is just any other country, but we know Israel's not any other country. So share with us the real importance really of actually preaching and letting the congregants know the times in which we're living in and how to prepare themselves so that fear does not strike their hearts, so they're aware of what's going on.
Well, if only it was as though it was just like any other country. In some pulpits, you would be forgiven for thinking that Israel is not even worth a mention. It's not, if it is mentioned, it's bad Israel. It's, this is all of the wrong things that people find about it. I've seen so many people equivocate and sit on the fence over what's been going on in the past couple of years, to say nothing of the past couple of months. There's been outright condemnation of the past couple of months. And I'm thinking, hold on. And even some pastors thinking it's so strange and bizarre that the Iranians in their congregation are actually very hopeful, and that, they've gone hand-wringing and thinking, this is going to be a tough conversation. They must be so grieved and upset by what the U.S. and Israel are doing, only to find the Iranian congregants looking at them like, what's going on? Why are you thinking we would be upset? This is what we've been praying about. Don't you care about this? No, Israel is our friend. No, the U.S. is our friend. We want them. So I've seen people talk about this. I've had conversations where people found it so bizarre. Again, it's because there's this blinkered perspective that does not actually appreciate the ongoing relevance of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel. The two are one and the same in relation to God's covenants. Jeremiah, it's so clear that, okay, if the pattern of seasons is completely inverted, and if, the stars fall from the sky, and if everything goes, the natural order of things cease to exist, then God's covenants with Israel can be said to have been put away. But he's saying, no, I will never forsake Israel. I will never forsake the Jewish people.
And, I'm going to try not to soapbox here, but
go for it.
It's complete cowardice, in my opinion.
It is.
So many leaders, they won't even talk about Israel. I mean, if what happened to Israel on October the 7th happened to any other country, they'd have the flags in their bios and they'd be like sending aid like we did with Ukraine. It's complete cowardice. They're afraid of losing people or something. I don't know what it is. And they're still in this world where they think we can just kind of like play those games we were playing for decades, where it's like trying to attract people to our church, a feel-good life coaching message. And we've seen so many scandals in the church. And I keep saying this, our standard has to be the Word of God. And even when you take the Word of God and the prophecies that are clear about Israel and God's purposes for Israel, this is also about right and wrong. How can you not see that? This is a country invaded. If you can't speak about the threat of Islamist terrorism, which is satanic, if you can't mention that without fearing, oh no, I'm going to upset some people, if you can't say Israel is God's forever people according to the Word of God, it's cowardice, and cowardice is judged, by the way, in Revelation outside of the cowards.
That's very true. And the other aspect to this one is realise that what starts in Israel never finishes in Israel.
That's right.
If the nations allow innocent blood to be shed on Israel, it will come to the nations. And the fact that Israel for the last 2 years and a bit have had to deal with these Iranian rockets and missiles firing at Israel, as well as from Hamas and Hezbollah, don't you think that Britain, who's not standing with the only democratic nation in the Middle East, is not going to come under the same sort of rocket and missile attack as Israel's done? So the reality is it will, because if there's innocent blood being shed in Israel, that blood will be shed around the world. And whatever happens to Israel will also be happen to you, according to Genesis 12, 1-3, that I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you. But we know that the Iranian regime is at war with Britain, don't we, Tim? Primarily because the Iranian regime is using their terror agents to target Jewish synagogues, to target Jewish schools, and even then to actually then target the Israeli embassy in a potential terrorist attacks in this country. And the Iranian regime is at war with the Jewish people, and so therefore our government needs to do far more to protect our precious Jewish community.
Absolutely. In fact, it was the Daily Mail that reported under the headline, 2 Iranian spies who carried out hostile surveillance on Jews in London targeted the UK's oldest synagogue, the Israeli embassy and the community centre, the court hears. The 2 men alleged to have spied on behalf of Iran carried out hostile surveillance on the Jewish community's colleges, synagogues, and the 2, which is Nematola Savani, he's 40, and Ali Reza Farasati, he's 22. They're accused of engaging in conduct likely to assist a foreign intelligence service between July the 9th and August the 15th last year. Prosecutors have said that Shah Savani identified targets for surveillance across London, including the Israeli embassy in Kensington, the JW3 Community Centre in Finchley, and the Bevis Mark Synagogue in Aldgate, Britain's oldest synagogue.
I've been to those 2 places. I've been to JW3, we've interviewed in there, and I've also been to the really old synagogue, which is right in the city of London, old Sephardi synagogue, beautiful. It's very, very hard to find. So you know that this is directly an attack against the Jewish people. And of course, we also seen in your neck of the woods, up in Golders Green, right, on Sunday night, how 3 ambulances, Jewish ambulances, were torched and burnt, sending fear into the heart of the Jewish community in London.
Well, even as we're recording, there's ongoing, and as this will be released, there's ongoing information that's coming out. But at present, it's believed that a Iranian terror cell network is responsible for that. They certainly have claimed responsibility for it. They've said that they were behind it. So this ties in. Yet another indicator that we are at war, another indicator that we are under attack. And, you know, it's all fine and well. Keir Starmer is sitting with Jewish leaders. Sadiq Khan has expressed his sympathies and, expressed how this is an attack on all Londoners, while, being a mouthpiece for these same sorts of ideologies at times. And so, this is the concern in which we are living in a day where just London alone saw over 1,000 anti-Semitic hate crimes in the past year. 1,000.
Yeah.
That's in a 12-month period.
And this is our Prime Minister's response to this hideous attack on these Jewish ambulances in Golders Green in North London. He said, "My thoughts are with the Jewish community," his thoughts because he doesn't believe in God, he's an atheist, "who are waking up this morning to this horrific news. Anti-Semitism has no place in our society. Anyone with any information must come forward to the police." Now, again, but what are you doing about this? Why are you allowing the marches in favour of the Iranian regime taking place in central London? Why are you not stopping these hate marches that are in support of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Why are the police and the government not cracking down on these? Why are they not cracking down on the incitement and hatred that's being directed against our Jewish community? Yeah. So therefore, you can say that and he has a Jewish wife, he observes Shabbat on a Friday, but there's a total disconnect from reality with him.
Absolutely, and this is this agenda, ever since this government came in, they withheld weapons from Israel. They soon recognised Palestine. They are constantly condemning Israel. Our media as well, the BBC. I saw a video yesterday and the BBC was portraying Israel as just blowing up poor Lebanese citizens' bridges, not realising that Hezbollah are using these bridges to bring weapons, but portraying it as an attack on civilians. And you just knew something like this was coming. And the Iranians have shown time and time again, they show this in Sweden a lot, by the way, but they're showing it in London. They're willing to work with criminal groups, with local Islamists who they've fired up online. They are a real threat and a danger. And this is a a people we are at war with.
So Tim, Reagan, thank you so much for doing a superb job. Thank you for your moral clarity, and thank you for speaking up against evil in the pulpit. And we just want to thank you for watching this program today. What it shows clearly is that the Iranians have the capacity and the intention to target London and Western Europe with ballistic missiles, and we are defenseless at this. It's time that our government woke up and realized that the Iranian regime is at war with Britain, and that we need to be on a war footing, because this poses a national threat to our national security. Unlike the Americans and unlike the Israelis, they know they're at war, defending the West against an Islamist regime that's quite capable of using nuclear weapons. And so the American Department of War has produced this video to pray for their US military personnel who are defending the West against the Iranian regime. Britain should be involved, so let's pray for Israel and let's pray for the US as they defend the world from the threat of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Dear gracious God, I need you. Now more than ever before, I need you, for I realize how great is my task and how meager are my resources. Give me wisdom, I pray. When demands press in on every side, give me accurate eyes that can separate the important from the urgent, the fundamental from the incidental. Give me wisdom, I pray. When I ache for my soldiers' friendship, give me courage to earn their respect and obedience. Give me wisdom, I pray. When time and task pull in different directions, grant me clarity to see the way and peace to calm those around me. Give me wisdom, I pray. When decisions are demanded, may my walk match my talk. Remind me daily that the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. Give me wisdom, I pray. When my authority is tested, show me when to raise my voice and when to lower it, and to use the carrot and when to use the stick. Give me wisdom, I pray. When my time is done, may I be remembered as a leader who encouraged, not discouraged, as a man who built people up, not tore them down. Give me wisdom, I pray. When in victory, keep me humble. When in defeat, keep me from despair. Compensate my weaknesses, accentuate my strengths, mold me into the man you want me to be. Give me wisdom, I pray. And most of all, please keep my soldiers safe. Lead them, guide them, protect them, watch over them. And as you gave all of yourself for me, help me to give all of myself for them. And it is in your name we pray.